What is the best app for digital watercolor? And why should a traditional watercolorist even try going for tradigital? What is tradigital to begin with? I'm Liane, Visual Arts, your professional art buddy, and in this video I will talk about all these topics and some more. Get yourself a nice drink, watch me paint a digital watercolor portrait while I talk about why I absolutely hated Rebelle 5, free actually back then when I bought it. And if you watch this video till the end, you will know what I think about it now. I will also speak about is Rebelle worth it, what's its pros and cons, should you try it, and what you should be aware of. And before we move on to the actual topic of this video, please be so kind and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share it with your friends to help my channel grow. My own journey started with traditional watercolor. I fell in love with the medium. I loved the airiness and the flowiness of watercolor painting, so I was literally obsessed with it. I studied for 4 years, very focused, very determined to master the skill of watercoloring. Eventually, I came to a point in my career where I realized that it's not really cost effective to only do watercolors and that I had to learn some digital art. By the way, I have some older videos on this channel that feature my traditional watercoloring, so I hope you will watch it. Anyhow, just browse through my channel, you will see them, or follow the link right here. So, as my career progressed, I saw the necessity to do digital art, and I kind of succeeded in this. I mastered the digital style, but I always lacked the artistic quality of traditional medium. I missed that, and I wanted to achieve this through digital media because this is definitely more cost effective because you don't have to pay for the materials, and it's easier to fix because you can hit undo button. So I tried a lot of apps to bring back the watercolor style into my digital art style. Of course, my first app of choice was Procreate because I have an iPad and I really love it. I love the mobility of iPad, so you can just paint wherever you are. And it was kind of a nice experience because there are tons of wonderful watercolor brushes, and I also have some videos with me imitating watercolor in Procreate. Please follow the link, you can also see that, how I do this. I highly recommend Procreate, especially for those who never did actual watercolor, because it's much easier to start imitating watercolor with this app. My second app of choice was Clip Studio Paint, and it's probably the app which I work the most right now with my other work, especially in digital style, because of its incredible capacity to fulfill almost all the needs of an illustrator. I tried Adobe Fresco, ArtSet, and probably something else, but nothing fully satisfied the need for one single thing which makes watercolor stand out from all other medium. It's spontaneity. Like, when you imitate watercolor in Procreate, the key thing, and this is the thing that I teach my students, that to make a digital watercolor look realistic, you have to think as if a lot of the marker making, those blotches and splashes and soft edges were not intentional, but they were spontaneous, that they were accidental. Because the thing about watercolor is that a lot of its beauty is being accidental. Those accidents is what makes watercolor feel lively. Those color blotches, those little drips of color, this is the thing that makes it work. And it's very hard to achieve because you have to think ahead of what you're doing. You have to pretend as if something that was clearly intentional was not. And it's a double work to do. But nothing really satisfied me in this term, and I could not find any app that can do that until I heard about Rebelle. Back in the time, it was called Rebelle Free. I've heard a lot of people being very excited about the app. I saw some videos which illustrated its abilities, and I was intrigued. I was really very curious because I saw that it does go into that direction because it also works with the actual physics of water. It reacts to the tilt of the canvas, which is incredible. And also the very interesting thing is that the texture is actually interactive. So it's not like you use overlay of the texture, the thing that you mostly do with other apps, like you imitate that there is a paper underneath your color layer. But the actual color does physically interact with the texture of paper, so your choice of paper watercolor affects the result that you're getting, and this is very close to the actual watercolor. But there were some cons to buying that app, and I was very hesitating in the beginning. First of all, because it's pricey. Yes, it's really not that accessible in terms of the price. It's an expensive app. You have to pay for each major upgrade, so it has that payment system in which you don't pay for it once. If you want to buy another major upgrade, you pay for it. Of course, some fixes, they come for free, but you have to pay for Rebelle 3, and then you have to pay for Rebelle 4, and then you have to pay for Rebelle 5, and also it doesn't have a mobile version. It can only work on your desktop computer, so you really need to have an extra tablet. Thankfully, I have my Wacom 5. It's rather old, but it's still in very good working condition, so I brushed the dust of it. Only for Rebelle mostly, and probably some occasional clips to do paint, which I also have on my desktop as well. Eventually I bought it, and I hated it. I was so frustrated because the app felt extremely counterintuitive to me. It was very hard to understand how it works. I felt like it has a lot of functions, and I had no idea how to use them. On the internet, there was close to zero in-depth tutorials on how to actually use it. Yes, you could find some very basic explanations of the basic functions, but back in the time, it was almost impossible to find some real good quality tutorials. And that was a huge stopper for me because it was so hard to find any valuable information. To do that, you had to dig into the forum to read what people say about this. Absolutely, like, that's not what they do, in modern days. That's not how it works, because right now, if you have an app, you have tons of information on TikTok, on YouTube, so the learning curve is fast. But here it was horrible. So I was so frustrated because, yes, I did kind of try some brushes, and on its own they were doing real fun things, but one thing is to make a pretty color blotch on a paper, and the other thing is to create a cohesive art piece, and I felt like I did not know what I'm doing. Eventually I just stopped using it and came back to Procreate, and mostly during last 3 years this was my app of choice. If I wanted to make an imitation of a watercolor or an oil painting, I was using Procreate because it seemed to be much more effective for me. So I forgot about Rebelle, but this autumn on Twitter I saw that there was a huge sale, so you could buy it very cheaply, like for $19 or something, like very, very cheap. Because it was their 10th anniversary, I think, so it was the reason of the sale. Also, along with those advertisements, I saw the description and the demonstration of the updates they had. So they had a totally new and, as I said, revolutionary color mixing system, which imitates the actual pigments and how they physically work with each other, and it did really look amazing on the demo. They also added new brush dynamics along with granulation, which looked very interesting, and that you can control it, so you can make your watercolors granulate stronger or lighter. So it really looked very promising. And also they announced the nanopixel feature, which allows you to export your finished artwork with a very high resolution, so you can make a highly detailed Ghibli print out of it, and it looks amazing. So I was tempted, and the videos that I saw looked very promising, so I decided, okay, I will give it another try, because I still haven't found anything that would totally satisfy my need for spontaneity in digital watercolor. And this time my experience was much better, and I must say that they did really improve the app significantly. And also what changed quite a lot during those last 3 years is that the amount of available information on how to use this app grew. It's not perfect still. It's still very under the radar. You can find those courageous people who actually educate the audience on how to use this app, and it helps you to really see its power, to actually understand how much you can achieve with it. And since I was able to get more into the functions and understand how they're working, I completely fell in love with this app. So we kind of had a rocky start. We went from enemies to lovers. Really, it's that trope. because for the second attempt I realized that it does exactly what I need, because the ability to control the dynamic of water, the physics of water, and how it affects the color. And when it comes to Rebelle, you can make it as spontaneous as you want, but you can still hit the undo button and you can freeze the dispersion of paint with water right where you like it. So it's amazing, and you probably see this while I'm painting this portrait, how I use this advantage, and it's super cool. I must say that if you are a traditional artist, if you are a watercolorist, you will know how to make the most out of this app, because it really has a long learning curve. It requires at least some basic understanding of how actual real materials work, because if your only experience was in digital, it will be very hard for you to understand what to do, even if you watch the tutorials. You still can, of course, but it still will be kind of complicated, because to understand what you can get from the app, you need to know that there is that possibility. Like, how do you start from light to dark? How can you switch from more water to less water? How granulation work? Why you need to use it? In which case? Like, what is salt? How wet color mixing affects the color transitions. It's incredibly realistic. I must say that if you use the nanopixel feature, if you buy Rebelle Pro and make a G-clip print, the result will be indistinguishable from the watercolor which you painted on a piece of paper. You can make very high quality art prints from the artwork that you painted in Rebelle. So Rebelle 5 has the mixture of almost all the benefits of real medium and the benefits of the digital app. So you can hit the undo button, you can use layers, you can do masking, you can use stencils, you can use all the magic of blending modes. So a most powerful app if you need to imitate traditional medium. And this is what I do. I call it tradigital. And right now I'm so very much into it. I'm actually planning to do more in-depth tutorials, because in this video I'm mainly talking about my experience with the app. I'm not really explaining what I'm doing, but if this video gets more likes, and please let me know in the comments below if you want me to cover some specific topics. You can ask me questions and it will help me greatly to plan my future videos. To summarize it, I must say that you definitely should try Rebelle 5 if you're looking for a way to implement traditional vibe to your artworks. You have to be aware of the fact that it can be laggy if your computer is not too strong, because it has some memory issues. My computer is new, so I don't have any issues about it, but you can. So please read all the technical specifications, because it's important. Also, as I said, it's desktop only, and it does require for you to study what you're doing. But it definitely pays off. To finish this artwork, I needed to use some metallic paint I have in art set, and I really wish that in the next update Rebelle team adds something like the metallics, because I really would love to have this in the single app. And let's hope that Rebelle team will eventually create the opportunity to use this app on iPad, which would be amazing. But I highly doubt that, because of it's being too heavy probably. But at least right now I understand why it's like this, and it is definitely worth trying. I hope that you enjoyed the video and the result of my painting. Please feel free to ask me any questions. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like this video, and see you next time.